normally do is wait till about 5 or 6 after, because as you can see, like people start to trickle in,
Yeah.
and then we'll get started. And of course, it's being recorded, so I know that there's a lot of people that watch it later. Agents that I actually probably wouldn't have ever thought that they would, right? Like have watched it and they've reached out and they've thanked both Mary and myself for doing this because, they're just like, oh my gosh, I've learned something every single time. So it's
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
it was a great idea, this whole coffee with a capper thing. You get so many different perspectives from so many different agents because, as we all know, we all come from different
Yeah,
places and we're in different places and we run our businesses different. So it's always great to hear from lots of different
absolutely.
perspectives. And you guys
Absolutely.
do a great job, by the way,
Oh, thank you.
moderating.
Moderating. Well, it's like my perfect job because I would like to have a coffee with every single successful agent in the office, and this kind of gives us an opportunity to do that.
It sure
Yeah.
does.
To the masses. So it's pretty cool.
And you know what else I like is like it's really lighthearted, right? Like we do so many things where you're like taking notes and like trying to like remember everything and like you have to be so focused. And this is kind of just a nice way to start
Casual.
a Thursday. It's a nice conversation, like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Casual, social.
Brings that sense of community, I guess, where we're all trying to help each other and learn from each other. And so, yeah.
Hmm.
And
Well,
Tammy's a regular, and Ron is a regular for sure.
Oh, for sure.
So, and
I think
Jennifer
we've been
is,
on a
although
bunch.
we
Yeah.
never see her face.
I know, Jennifer, I don't know if I've even seen you in the flesh ever.
It's too early, guys. It's too early.
Someday.
So I got into real estate, so I don't have to get ready until like noon.
Right?
exactly.
Oh my
Well,
gosh.
okay, then maybe we need to change this to like, I
Yeah.
don't know, cocktails with a capper.
That I would be okay with.
That could be something. That'll be a whole different show.
Yeah, something to change it up.
Right?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Well, should we get started? We're at 9:07. I don't want to waste Pam's time.
Yep, that sounds great.
Do you want to interview today?
It's up to you.
Yeah, you can go.
Okay.
I'll always interject when I come up with thoughts.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. So Pam, I'd like to thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you taking your time out of your busy day. My gosh, this girl has been on fire. She has done $2 million in sales in September. That is fantastic.
Woohoo!
Not only is
Thank God.
not only is that fantastic for anybody really, like our teams and stuff, but man, being a single agent doing this all by yourself and doing 2 million is just nothing to sneeze at. And I guess to put it in perspective for all of you, you cap generally when you do about $2.2 million in sales. So in theory, if Pam had just reset, she would be so close to capping again. So, but I think it's been a bit, right? Like, when is your anniversary date, honey? I think you're March, aren't you?
April 1st.
April. Okay. So actually, I mean, this works just as well because she gets to earn 100% of her commission on $2 million in sales, and that is just fantastic. So, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for asking.
Oh, you're welcome.
And so full disclosure, like I said to Mary, when she asked me, I am like, I don't know if I have anything of value to say because this company is so full of young, hot rock stars that are totally crushing it with all the latest technology and all of that stuff. And I'm like, that ain't me.
Okay. But let's put this in perspective though. Like we said that each of these talks are different, right?
Yep.
And everybody gets something different out of them. So clearly you are doing something because, despite, using all of the tools and technology or some of it or none of it or whatever, you clearly have something going on, my friend. And that's what I'm curious to learn about today. So, can you just start by just maybe telling a little bit about yourself? Give us a little bit of background, how long you've been in the business, kind of where your life path took you, why real estate? I feel like I know you, but maybe some of the others on here don't. So let's get started that way.
Okay. So I've been in the business for a gazillion years.
Define gazillion.
26 plus. I'll be coming up on 27 very shortly. My previous career was restaurant. Back in the day when I graduated from high school, it wasn't the given thing that you automatically went to college. Back then, about half of us started going to college and the other half of us didn't. And I really had no drive or, passion to go to college for anything. All I wanted to do was start making money and start living my life. And the shortest path to that was restaurants. And that's what I started doing. And I fell in love with the restaurant life, the restaurant industry. It fit my life. I too have never been a morning person. So I did everything. I waitressed, I bartended, I managed, I ran restaurants, and it was my life, my passion. But so about like in my mid to late 30s, when I'm looking at approaching 40, bartending was my favorite position in the restaurant business. And I'm like, I really don't think I can grow old gracefully behind a bar. So I started thinking about, what else I was going to do besides the fact that it's very physically demanding. And so I started thinking about what else was my passion. And real estate just was the next perfect fit as far as, I didn't have a lot of options because I didn't have 20 years fast forward. I didn't have a college degree. So my options were limited. Am I going to be, a secretary? I don't think so. I'm not really good at punching the clock, 9 to 5 every day. So.
That morning thing.
No, not happening. So, real estate was the next best fit. I had remodeled homes, so I had that passion of loved architecture and all of that. So when I got my license, I actually had 3 other part-time jobs. I had my bartending, I had whittled down to a couple of nights a week. I had my own dog grooming business that I had started, which animals are my other passion. And I was also the assistant to the regional manager of Taco Bell. So then I got my license, and as my real estate career progressed, I would drop off one of my part-time jobs. When the income from real estate took over one of my part-time jobs, I would drop that off. And it was really great actually having all of those jobs because I got a lot of my business for real estate from all of those connections. So it really helps me get started in the real estate business. So
Cool.
yeah,
Cool.
that's kind of it.
Did you, Pam, utilize those jobs? Because I have some mentees right now who are in the restaurant business and they're unsure how to go about kind of transitioning that, like, you know, how to utilize those jobs to help further their business. Did you ask for help? Was it just the fact that people knew what you did?
Yeah, so that's a very social business, and everybody, not only your coworkers, but your customers, and you get a lot of regular customers when you're in the restaurant business, and you can make a lot of money if you're in the right place. It's a pretty lucrative thing to do. God, thank God I'm not in it this year. Holy crap, I said that to myself. I'm like, I'm so glad I transitioned a gazillion years ago, but yeah, restaurant is just such a social atmosphere. You just naturally talk about what else you do.
Right.
You ask your customers what they do, and they inevitably ask you about your life and what else you do. So
Right.
that's how that all goes.
Right.
It's the same thing now. You ask people what they do, and they in turn ask you what you do.
Sure.
It's the same thing.
Right. Building relationships, people.
Yeah. It's a very natural transition, and I find there's a lot of realtors that came from the restaurant business.
Restaurant business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So I know that you have not always been with Keller Williams. So can you tell us where you started? What piqued your interest? Why the switch? And let's just talk about some of the differences.
So I started my career at Nothnagel back in '94. That Nothnagel was the premier local hometown business company. They were, if you were out there doing listing appointments, they were the one to compete with. So I interviewed with a couple of companies, and in my opinion, they had the best training for new agents at the time. And as we all know, just getting your license is no training. So yeah, you need to go through a whole new agent training program, which is, they had the best at the time. So that's where I went. I stayed with them for about 8 years, and I felt I was stagnating at the time. So I actually made the switch to Columbus Real Estate and Relocation. And not a lot of people know that name anymore, because that was taken over shortly after I joined the company. But that was, Judy Columbus was kind of a high-end boutique kind of company, which was really cool and really different coming from Nothnagel.
So what would you say your volume was at that point where you felt like you were stagnating? Did you know your numbers then?
Yeah, 2 million.
2 million. Okay.
Yeah.
And you just couldn't break that barrier.
No, I couldn't, and I couldn't get any help doing it. So,
Okay.
trying to break through it. So,
yeah.
Yeah, just going to a different atmosphere, a different culture, a whole different part of the real estate. Yeah, I got introduced to the high-end real estate.
Right.
To Judy Columbus, which was really fun and exciting, and that was a whole new process. That was fun.
That is a whole different animal in and of itself. Let's
It
be
is.
honest.
It
Yeah.
is. Not only the properties, but the people and the culture and yeah,
Yeah.
it is a whole different animal.
What are
Yeah.
the biggest differences? Because not everybody knows, right? We all kind of have our niche that we're in. What would you say are the biggest differences between the markets?
The high-end market, it's not really about the house. It's about the people and their mindset and what they expect. Um, People with money want to deal with people with money. And so I had to project that I had money. I had, perception is everything, and you fake it till you make it. And I did that for a while. Yeah, I did that for a while.
And then Judy
And-
Columbus got taken over, correct? Or they were
Yeah.
bought out. And then
Yeah. So Hunt Real Estate from Buffalo came to the Rochester market. Judy Columbus was the first brokerage that they purchased. They left us alone for 5 years. I think it was in their contract that they couldn't make any changes for 5 years. So nothing really changed. But after that 5-year mark, they really, they were the Nottingham of Buffalo. And they were coming to Rochester to come after Nottingham.
gotcha.
And they did pretty well in the beginning, but then they started to grow too much, too fast, and they kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Gotcha.
So after being with Hunt for a number of years, it was very, very frustrating. Every other corporate was out of Buffalo, and you had to write all your ads, and they had to go to Buffalo, and it was just kind of a shit show. So I'm like, my business is difficult enough as it is. I don't need my company making it more difficult. Their website never worked, ever. And every year it was like, oh, a new website, this is going to fix everything. And it was every year.
Right.
I finally said. So I actually came to KW in 2010. That was my first stint with them. Yep. And you were new, brand new company, 1 year. And although it was, it was new, it was innovative, and I guess, quite frankly, I wasn't ready for that. It was kind of culture shock for me.
In what way, Pam?
I was used to the dependent model of brokerages. Both Nottingham and Judy Columbus were they took care of their agents, So the Keller Williams model was, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I just wasn't prepared for it.
Right.
So I stayed a year. Not that, everybody was very helpful, but it just didn't feel right at the time for me.
Well, if you were in a spot in your business where you weren't ready to maybe run your business like a business on your own, being more of the interdependent or, leaning more towards independent, then that is a big culture shock for people.
Yeah.
I know that Nothnagel has a marketing department and, all of those things. And Judy Columbus did too. And everything looked the same and they took care of things for you. And,
Yep.
you come to the new bright, shiny object in town and, despite how fun we are or whatever, if you're just not in that mindset, then,
Yep.
it's not going to work. So Did you went back to, did you
So
go back?
I went back to Nosnagel.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Where
And-
were you at production wise at this point? Were you still at about 2 million?
No, I was 4
Mm-hmm.
4 million.
Okay.
So I went to, so I went back to Nosnagel. I went to the Pittsford office. I stayed there a year. Some things happened there that were very nice. And I'm like, I gotta move again. I can't move again. So they talked me into going to the Brighton office, which is where I met my roomie, Andrea. And and we've been roommates ever since. So that was, and then, so I was happy there. I loved my office. I loved being in my office with Andrea and a couple other people. And we were having a great time, and my production was great. I got up to 6 million. And I was happy with that. But then, word came that Howard Hanna was taking over. And I thought, I don't care. I've been through a takeover before. I'm not going anywhere. But then things happened. Some things happened that showed me who Howard Hanna people were. And I didn't want to be associated with that. And then I started thinking, both Andrea and I were looking around, and I started thinking about Keller Williams and all the money I had left on the table, the whole 7 years I was gone from Keller Williams, and how much I would have made compared to how much I made based on my production. And I thought, that's a lot of money to leave on the table.
Right.
So
here you are.
So here I am. I'm back.
Here you are.
And haven't looked back.
Good.
How
So
did you find, Pam, the transition? Because I found it overwhelming with the amount of technology.
Oh my God. I am like, my head exploded. I am like, how do I get all this stuff up and running?
Right.
But, everybody, Rachel at the time and Chris Boydus, and everybody is so helpful in the whole transition. So yeah, it's not the lack of support. It's just that there's so much
right.
that Keller Williams has.
Well,
So,
you're clearly finding your way through. What do you think is causing like this big boom that you have? Like any actions that you're doing differently, or?
no.
No? Well, what are your daily actions, I guess? Like, how do you, nurture your clients? How do you get your clients? Is it all referral based, or do you do a mixture of different kind of the way things?
It's mostly, I would say, 90% referral based.
Okay.
I am, I would say, pretty good at picking up like listing calls and things like that. I used to do before COVID. I did a lot of open houses. I'm good at picking up people from open houses.
Mhm.
But other than that, yeah, it's all referral based and staying in contact with my client, my past clients. And I gotta say that it's nothing. A lot of people have structured processes in place, and I just don't. I just kind of, I decided to put all of my past clients, friend them all on Facebook.
Okay.
And that was such an easy, is now such an easy way to stay in contact. Excuse me, top of mind. It's just treating them like friends,
Right.
which they are and have become. And a lot of my clients have truly become friends, and we do things together, and we are friends now.
Is that a
But
conscious thing, or is that just something that happens because you're such a delightful person to be around?
is that what?
Like, do you go out of your way to like be like, you know what, I want to make sure I nurture that relationship, so I'm going to ask her to lunch? Like, do you consciously try to make people friends, or is that just something that has happened over time?
When you have the right client, you just automatically click with them.
Yeah.
You just automatically click. Like this one. So I've had like this September when I did all this business, it just came. The business just came. And I got to tell you, previous to this, I have had the most difficult, probably at least 3 years of my entire business, my entire career. I went through a lot of, bless you,
Thank you.
a lot of several life events that sent me into a really dark place, emotionally, and it really took a long time to get out of that. And when you go through stuff in your personal life, of course it affects your business, because your business isn't just separate. Real estate is a way of life.
Right.
It's not a career, it's a way of life.
Sure.
And so going through all of that past 3 or 4 years took a toll on my business. I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't focus, I couldn't do anything. I was in a really dark place. So coming out of that and just being, I guess when you're able, mentally and emotionally, you're ready for the business, it comes back.
Right.
And I gotta tell you, God puts the right people in your path at the right time, Andrea. And when you're not ready to handle business, he knows that. And when you're ready, he brings it back.
Right.
Because I didn't do anything different. I didn't go out and knock on doors. I didn't start calling my people. Just the soft contact through Facebook, some phone calls. But basically, all my people just started coming out of the woodwork, and they're all my past clients. This whole 2 million are all my past clients that came out of the woodwork.
Well, let's face it though. So we are all in a service-oriented business, right? It's all about customer service. It's all about relationships. And sometimes I think that, the way, I shouldn't say sometimes I know that the way you present yourself really kind of does have an effect on what you do, how you do. If you're down, it's hard to give of yourself, right? Like you just can't, you can't step out and be open and bubbly and cheerful if that's really not how you're feeling inside. So it
Yeah,
becomes
not
very
completely. I mean, you can try to fake it, which I thought I was doing and tried to do, and I thought I did pretty well, but people can still see
Sure.
or feel something, you
You
know?
give a vibe, right?
Yep,
For
no
lack
matter
of a
how
better.
much you try to hide it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
So what helped you to get out of that, and what helped you to start to focus on business again?
Drugs.
Excellent.
For the,
Is it the candid, truthful? No.
for the first time in my life, I decided that I really had to go on an antidepressant.
Okay.
And it did help. But, you know, the whole time that I was going through this, I was fighting and struggling to work out of it, to like not give into it, I guess.
Right. Right.
But, and it wasn't until I finally said to myself, you know what? It's okay where you are. I allowed myself to be there and feel it and acknowledge it and stop fighting it.
Right.
And when I finally did that, that's when I began to heal.
Yeah.
Right. It's all about self-care, right?
Yeah.
Although I
Yeah.
think there's so much value in what you did, right? Was you didn't have gangbuster years, but you plugged away and you just kept moving forward.
Just enough to keep, you know, paid just enough to pay the bills and sometimes not, but, you know, never gave up and
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it's important. I know that you think you, at the beginning of the, thing said you don't have anything to offer, but not a lot of agents have been in the business for 26 years, and so we haven't all experienced the ebb and flow, but it is inevitable that there will be high points of our business and low points of our business. And so I think there's such incredible value in seeing how someone plugged through it. And sometimes, like you said, like we go through personal things, and the beauty of our business is that,
Well, the other thing too, Pam.
please.
Yeah.
The beauty of our business, sorry about that, is that we have the grace to do that, right? Like nobody's gonna fire you, right? You
Exactly.
just, come up and you have your moment and you do what you need to do, and then when you're ready to come back, you come back, and you can come back when you're ready, and all of those good things. So I think that is one of the best things. And as a mother, it was a conscious decision where I was like, I need to know that when I need to give all my focus to my kids that I can, and that when I'm ready to go gangbusters, then I will, and
Absolutely. Thank God we have the flexibility in this business. Yeah, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
But it can flex with your personal circumstances and situation.
Yeah.
Thank God.
probably need to be adaptable, right? I mean, being willing to come back to Keller Williams, knowing how progressive it was, shows that you were beginning to enter a stage where you were willing to be like, you know what, the world is changing. The real estate world is changing, right? And I need to change with it. So do you feel like that any of those kinds of conversations in your head happened, or?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. But I got to tell you, it was the money.
That's okay too.
It was the money. If I'm going to put in the amount of hours I'm going to put in, why would I be anywhere other than the place where you can make the most amount of money for the same amount of time and the same amount of production?
Right.
Right. Preach it, sister.
Yeah.
So what I think that you're also saying too, Pam, not only resonates for people that maybe have been in the business and have struggled And so basically the message that you're just giving is, really just kind of stick with it and persevere. But I think that that's also really important for our new agents too, ones that are just getting into the business that might be struggling, thinking, they've got the HGTV idea of what real estate looks like, and they get their license and it's a fairly easy process and they get going, and it's really nothing like that at all. So the message that I'm taking away from this is stick to it, man. Just keep going, just keep working, and that's awesome.
Just keep going because, like I said, before very recently, and especially September, you have the periods where every single deal is like, oh my God, slit my wrist now. Is anything ever going right? And then all of a sudden the sun comes out and you have a month where everything is like, this is what real estate is supposed to be like,
Right.
Right.
Well, you can't have the good without the bad, because then you wouldn't know what good is,
And
right?
you wouldn't appreciate the good.
Correct.
Oh, that was another thing I know, Pam, when we talked on the phone the other day. I think that having so much experience in the business, I'm starting to learn more and more like what a good agent is by being on the other side of an agent, right? So what would you say like are the best kinds of agents out there, and what are like things to kind of be wary of as far as being an agent?
Well, obviously, I mean, I'm an agent that will do anything I have to do to make the deal close. There are so many other people that within the transaction that move it forward, and if one of those people doesn't do their job, it's going to stagnate. And the end goal is to get the damn thing closed and everybody happy. And so there are agents that say, well, that's not my job. Well, if you don't do it, it ain't going to close. So if somebody isn't doing their job, I'll do their job. And it happens a lot. Or you find a way to get around that person to get to a solution.
Right.
And it's just finding the path of least resistance through the whole maze of getting it to close. So obviously you want somebody on the other side that has the same integrity and that'll go the distance, that'll do the 110% for you.
Yeah.
And
work ethic, right? I mean, I think that's a big difference. And you had 3 jobs when you started this career, so clearly you're not afraid of working, right? It is going to be a mile. I think that's what I'm learning.
Right, and you just learn, after doing deal after deal with different agents, you learn who else is willing to do that. Has that work ethic and will go above and beyond. And I just had a deal with an agent from Howard Hanna, and I had the buyer, and everything on my buyer's side was a nightmare. My buyer's bank, which he wouldn't listen to me, he went to his own bank. His attorney, he wouldn't listen to me, he had his own attorney. And the bank was horrific. We had mortgage commitment on August 27th, and we didn't get the clear to close for over a month. Wow. And so the bank, the loan officer, I wasn't getting anywhere. She started getting snippy with me, and she was just stonewalling me. But she responded to the seller's agent much better. So he took over. He took over the communications with the bank, and it clearly wasn't his job to communicate with my buyer's bank, but they were responding to him, so it was the path of least resistance.
Sure.
And he did it, and that's who you want on the other side of the transaction. And we finally, they're closing today. Yay.
Well, that's good to hear, Pam. I've got one of those that's 5 weeks behind on clear to close, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is it ever gonna close?
Yeah. What bank?
Movement.
Oh, mine's M&T.
Oh well. But it is good, like, right? Like, no ego. Whoever that other agent is like, you know what? I don't care. Obviously, this isn't my job, but if it'll help move the pendulum forward, then
Yeah, we gotta get our clients to the end, to the goal line, you know.
you got to put them on your downline then.
Believe me, I've been working on it.
Oh my gosh, too funny. So, any feelings of where you want to be in the next, 2-5 years?
Well, I'm gonna be 64 next month, so I'm looking at what I want to do after real estate. So,
Do you think you'll ever stop?
I don't know. Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no. That's something that'll work out and play by ear.
Mm-hmm.
Back in 2013, I bought my condo in Florida when the market was rock bottom, with the intention of that was going to be my retirement. So my raw plan is I'll be there in the winter and my soda place in the summer. And however that works out, that's the rough plan. And when it works out, I don't know.
Right.
But yeah. But just a quick story about how you make friends and stay in contact. I had my listing in Port Bay. The buyer called me directly. They didn't have an agent, and the first time we met, we clicked, and she was like, "Oh my God, we're going to be such good friends." And we ran into them when we were in Otis, but they live in Williamson, on this past Sunday, and they've got this huge party barn where it's just the coolest thing, and they invited us back because we ran into them at a restaurant. They invited us back, and we're just like, that's just kind of how it happens.
That's cool.
I'm sure everybody goes through that.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions for Pam? Any other questions about how she got to where she is or anything like that?
You can either type it in the chat or just unmute yourself.
My poor dog.
I have a question.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi. So I feel like I run a lot with buyers. I run. How do you balance it where you start getting more listings so you're not running to the point where you're exhausted? Because I feel like I run so much with clients that I just need a day to myself sometimes.
That's a good question. How do you transition from buyers to more listings?
Yeah.
My business has always been, I've tracked it, my business has always been about half and half. I've got about half listings, half buyers. It's been that way pretty much my whole career. And yeah, buyers can run you ragged, but they are the most appreciative clients ever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't have a real good answer for your question.
How long have you been in the business, Tammy?
5 years now.
3.5?
Yeah.
Okay. So my thought process is that eventually, like, you work on building these relationships, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pam and Andrea. My thought process is that you you do start off pretty buyer heavy depending on your sphere. So like you've got to be nurturing, anybody and everybody you meet, letting them know that you're an agent, things like that, to work on getting listings from your sphere. But my thought is that you're going to get the buyers, and then probably once you're in the business a few more years, there might start to be some turnover with people moving up and so on and so forth. And I would think that it's probably just really nurturing your database and staying in touch with them, and maybe getting everybody on a neighborhood snapshot if you haven't already in Command, just letting them know what's out there in their neighborhood. And they have the ability to add different areas that might pique their interest. Maybe they aren't thinking of moving, but you never know, if that house comes up that they've always admired, you know what I mean, that might force that. So
Right. And then, in time, those buyers become sellers, move up
Right.
sellers. But that takes time. Have you done any geographical marketing?
Say that again, Tammy.
No, not really.
Okay.
Should I try that maybe?
Yeah, so you might want to pick a neighborhood. Maybe, I don't know where you live, your neighborhood. But pick a neighborhood, and the way you do that is to go on the MLS and research if you have a neighborhood in mind. Go over and go in the MLS, see what kind of turnover there is, and see if that neighborhood already has an agent that dominates it.
Mm-hmm.
So try to stay away from neighborhoods like that. But if you see a neighborhood that has a pretty good turnover and there's lots of different agents doing the transactions in that neighborhood, that's where you want to start geographically farming.
Okay.
Because nobody's got a hold on that.
Pam, I'll add to that. Make sure there is not the same realtor doing that neighborhood, because if you find a dominant agent, they may live in there. So I would say don't pick a neighborhood that another agent has really taken over because they live there, unless you live in there too.
Oh, okay.
So just make sure, because it's going to be fruitless. They probably know the person. I've been in my neighborhood 22 years, so I do a lot of the business in there. But before I moved in there, it was Susan Holmes and Linda Lizzo. There were two agents who really had my neighborhood locked, but they didn't live in there. But since I did, I took it over. So just make sure you look at who did those transactions, who is the main listing agent, then search in Realist and see if they live in there. And if the agent lives in there, move on to a different one.
Okay. Thank you. Good point.
And maybe even with regards to your own neighborhood, I know this is a few years ago, but I did have an agent that lived in mine, prior to me getting licensed and stuff. And like he used to, market like a neighborhood garage sale, or, like a neighborhood swap, or, so maybe there's things you could do that way, that would just really kind of provide a service to your neighborhood so that they get to know who you are. And then with the change of the seasons, maybe do a pop by, somebody had a really cute idea, where they did batteries, for like smoke detectors, and then put them in a bag, and, kind of came up with some kind of, saying whatever around the change of seasons, or, the turning the clock back, or, putting your business card and things like that. Maybe just, doing stuff like that on a regular basis so that people get to know who you are.
Okay.
And getting face to face. Doing that, those pop buys helps get you face to face. And that's
Right.
a big thing to do. And there's, I don't know if you do pop buys now, Tammy, do you?
I do for my sphere.
Okay.
I haven't done anything for like a neighborhood, but I've done it for like my sphere.
Yeah. So maybe, start geographically farming a neighborhood that has a high turnover will help you get more listings.
Okay. Thank
Or
you.
even just asking your sphere for business.
Oh yeah, I've been asking them.
Okay, okay. Up, you're muted, Mary.
Dogs are barking. Do you have any like words of advice for new agents out there when they're listening to the recording? Just things you would have done differently if you'd known, anything.
A lot of new agents get discouraged too quickly, I think. You know, like we said in the beginning, they have an idea of what real estate is like, and from watching television and all that stuff, and it's like, it's not the way it is. Don't get discouraged. Some people take longer to get established. When I got in the business, they said you better have other income for a good 2 years. So that really, I would say, the minimum amount of time. You know, some people it takes even longer to get established, but
Mhm.
you know, plan on a good 2 years, and don't get discouraged. And there are a lot of discouragement in the beginning. I was actually pretty shy when I got in the business, and I did a lot of things I forced myself to do a lot of things that were outside of my comfort zone. I cold called, and that was quite a learning experience. And it was great. It was such a breakthrough for me mentally, approaching people that I don't know, because I got a lot of rejection, and it really was. It became like a game. So I knocked on doors when I started. I started geographically farming a neighborhood. I went and knocked on doors, and I gave them little pumpkins, and that was actually much better received than calling on the phone. Everybody welcomed me. People invited me in their house that didn't know who the hell I was, invited me in their house, showed me stuff, and you might want to start that way. Tammy. But that's my advice. Keep going, man. Keep going.
Awesome.
All right, Pam, Andrea's going to chime in here because I've been your roommate for a long time.
Hi,
Rumi. So I will tell all the new agents to practice your scripts, your phone call scripts. Have a list in front of you of questions that you're going to ask and responses and objections to those responses, because the thing that I've learned the most being her roommate for this long is the poise and the professionalism that she carries on the phone. I could see why she converts so easily any cold call or lead, because she is so calm and cool under pressure. Just like she's talking to you now is how she talks on the phone. And it is always something that is a learning experience for me. So I just shut up and I listen to her when she's on the phone. She has practiced and learned everything that she says. So I will say, try not to wing your phone calls. Have some kind of a script in front of you until you learn that script, because she's quite effective, and I could never be as calm and cool as she is on the phone. I get too excited that I have a deal coming. It's like, oh, I get so excited I start talking a lot. But she is just so good in her conversation. So I would say try to learn how to be that calm and cool when you're talking to someone and trying to convert or get information.
Well, thank you. And that just comes, with practice. And people go scripts, but scripts until it becomes second nature.
Very true. Excellent. Well, thank you, Pam, for joining us today. I
Thank
loved
you,
chatting
guys.
with you.
Thank you guys so much.
You're
It was
welcome.
fun. It was fun.
You're welcome.
All right, everybody have a kick-ass day. Go get
All
'em.
right. You too. Take care of everyone. Good to see you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye-bye.